Hello everyone, welcome to WhatCulture Gaming, and first off, apologies for missing last week's episode of Ups and Downs. You bet I was absolutely kicking myself when I saw it, but because the episode aired early before the weekend and we wouldn't have got around to reviewing it until the Monday, we felt it was a little bit late, so we just ended up skipping it. But like I said, I'm pure gutted about that because here's my review right now. It was great. It was the best episode of the season in my opinion. Completely flawless, no downs, all ups. It probably would have been a boring episode of this critique anyway. Put simply though, episode 5 rules. And with episode 6 this week, we catch up with Ellie and Joel in the immediate aftermath of the deaths of Henry and Sam. And it's another great episode as well, giving us some of the heaviest emotional conversations between our heroes yet. But before we talk about that specifically, I just want to first shout out how good this episode looked. I didn't get time to mention it much during the episode 4 review, but by moving the previous action to Kansas City instead of Pittsburgh, I did kinda lament the fact that we maybe lost some of the distinct seasonal settings included in the game. After all, one of the best visual flourishes of the game is how distinct each location feels, whereas the color grading and cinematography kinda gave both Kansas and Boston a more consistent presentation. With this episode though, we absolutely do get that visual change, with lush, snowy vistas and a much colder color palette to reflect the seasonal change. And as a fan of The Walking Dead who spent years yearning for that show to finally depict a proper post-apocalyptic winter, The Last of Us episode 6 felt like a dream come true in that regard, so the visual presentation definitely gets an up. Generally as well, the cinematography across the board was absolutely excellent in episode 6. In fact, it kind of looked more like a western than it did a piece of genre fiction, no doubt helped by so many shots of Ellie and Joel riding across the plains on a horse. The sweeping shots of Jackson, Ellie and Joel camping in the caves, the pair arriving at the university. Put it this way, fans have got plenty of great new computer backgrounds to choose from this episode, so that definitely gets an up. And speaking of Jackson, what a joy it was to see that location fully realised in live action. While we don't see it properly until the second game, this might be the most satisfying adaptation from a production standpoint yet. Seeing the snow-covered main streets, the community hall, the bar, the stables, the production has just done a brilliant job across the board here. It all looks stunning. Rather than just being an authentic translation though, it also precisely conveys exactly what Ellie and Joel now have to lose, raising the stakes of their journey even higher. Give it an up, it's a location I can't wait to return to. Let's give a hand to Gabriel Luna and Retina Wesley as Tommy and Maria as well. The pair have incredible chemistry together, and again they show what Joel could have if he just let himself live a life and not close himself off to everything and everyone. Tommy reuniting with Joel likewise is as heartfelt as it should be, and the scenes between the pair might be the best of the entire episode. As Joel himself put it a few episodes ago, family is the only reason that he has to keep on going, and Tommy is now kind of all that he has left, well, until we get to Ellie. And the way you see this conveyed through Pedro Pascal's performance is just incredible. Every action they have together, you feel the elation at Joel's realization that his brother is still alive, the fury that he cut him off to join a new community, and eventually even the spiteful jealousy that Tommy himself is starting a family, while Joel still thrashes at the fact that his was taken away from him. So yeah, Tommy's inclusion and how he's used in this episode definitely gets an up. And all of this culminates in one of the most powerful moments of the season so far, where Joel finally admits to Tommy exactly what the hell is going on with him inside his mind. Now, so far throughout the season, we've seen a Joel who's kind of stoic to the fault. We know there's something underneath that's came out here and there, but he's tried to suppress it at every turn. At this point, he's someone who shrugged off his increasing physical ailments that might have lessened his ability to survive compared to his younger days, as well as what I mentioned before about him being someone who pushes down all the things that have happened to him, and all of this comes rushing out in this scene with Tommy, eventually anyway, to the one person that he still considers kin. Again, Pascal is unreal here, conveying Joel's fears, and particularly the fear that caring has actually impaired his ability to protect people and survive himself, because he's freezing up because he's so frightened to lose someone else. The scene itself rhymes with one we've seen previously with Bill and Frank as well, because in that episode, Bill apologized to Frank for getting older quicker than him, and in this scene with Joel and Tommy, it's clear the former is feeling some similar guilt and stress about the very same thing. So yeah, this all gets an up. What a scene, what a way to develop Joel's character and establish this relationship. Perfectly acted, perfectly shot, it's great. It is important to note though that yes, this is very unlike the Joel that we get in the game. But as I pointed out in the review for episode 4, TV Joel is a different version of this character. This is someone more past it, someone hanging together by bits of duct tape, still thinking he can take the world on his own if he just approaches everything with cold calculability, and slowly realizing that that idea is wrong. Again, kind of the same realization that Bill had in episode 3. So him breaking down here specifically to the one person at this moment in time that he feels comfortable enough to open up to, especially after all he's been through with Ellie and the near-death experiences they've had together and how she's saved him, it felt right. It felt right to do it exactly in this episode. Not content to end there though, we then immediately get another heartfelt scene and a confrontation between Ellie and Joel themselves. This is a heart-wrenching scene taken directly from the game, with Ellie having overheard Joel's plan to pawn her off to Tommy after all they've been through. So she confronts him, telling Joel that she's not his daughter, and the switch in Pascal's performance here is just fantastic, moving from someone who's more emotional and vulnerable to someone whose rage is triggered at someone else talking about his daughter. It's a great scene, they've really done the game version justice, and it gets an up. While the Jackson portion of the episode was great, however, I did feel that the brisk pace of the journey to the university, and specifically Joel's stabbing, felt a little bit rushed. While we definitely didn't need a full episode or even half an episode set in the university, the tension of the pair being blindsided by the incoming raiders just didn't quite land. It just wasn't given enough time for me. And that's because in just a couple of quick cuts and a couple of seconds, we see there are 4 guys outside, to then cutting to Joel and Ellie getting to the horse, to then Joel killing one and realizing he's been stabbed. And this is one where on paper I do get exactly what they're trying to execute here. It's been a defining part of the show so far that violence comes quick and unannounced, with fates changing in an instant. Here though, I do feel that they just needed to build up to this moment a little bit more for it to be as impactful as it should have been. For me, the reveal of Joel realizing that he's been stabbed fell a little bit flat in its execution. I didn't need Joel falling from a great height onto a bit of rebar like in the game or anything, but maybe spend more time heightening the tension with them having to sneak through the university or taking 1 or 2 more goons out before arriving at that climactic moment. In execution, the last 10 minutes of this episode felt just a little too brisk, and I would have liked more build-up and more tension in that scene for that impact to really impact you. So for me, this does get a down. Likewise, the pacing generally does feel like a rocker, which at times is a real benefit, but other times, like Joel quickly changing his mind and heading out with Ellie, feel like they need more time to sink in. This, of course, was an immense benefit of the game, with a lengthier runtime and more moments where you're allowed as the player to just sit with Ellie and Joel while they talk and allow moments to sink in as they should. But in the show, with the pace being so fast and with only 9 episodes, it does feel sometimes that character dynamics shift a little bit too quick, or we don't get to focus on the impact and consequences of a scene. And yeah, I didn't imagine myself ever saying this because I'm a fan of short TV shows, but I really do think that with the expansions and with how big the story is, we maybe could have even done with a couple more episodes to the entire season. Maybe we could have had 10, 11, or maybe even 12 rather than the 9 we had. Even without that though, I do think this episode specifically could have done with maybe even 10 more minutes to make sure everything landed and was built up to. So yeah, maybe this is more of a criticism for the series as a whole, but it was felt particularly in this episode, so it gets it down. Still, I can't get too mad because in between all of this, we got those incredible scenes of bonding between Ellie and Joel, with Joel finally teaching Ellie how to shoot and how to hunt, and with them talking about what they would do if there was no apocalypse, if there was a cure, what would they want to be, and how would they live their lives. These scenes are absolutely the heart of the show, and I'm so glad that they're included as best they can. So yeah, that definitely gets an up. Those interactions, incredible. Now, there are more ups to come, but for the first time in the history of this series so far, I need to issue a massive spoiler warning for the games to come. And that's because I simply can't discuss what else I loved about the episode without talking about The Last of Us Part 2, which is why I've saved this portion for the end, so if you don't want to know anything about future plots and haven't played the games, well, this is your time to jump off. Dan, please chuck up a big warning so nobody misses this. I don't want to be responsible for anyone finding major spoilers out about where the story's going. So I'll skip to this timestamp for our non-game spoiler wrap-up, but for now, we're about to get into it. Right, okay, just gaming folk here right now, yeah, definitely no one who hasn't played The Last of Us Part 2, because my favourite part of this episode as someone who's played the games is how they were seeding future plot developments that they're going to adapt from that second game, and just how much this stuff is going to tear my heart out in a few years' time. I was kind of just watching parts of the episode going, yep, that'll ruin me, alright, you're gonna ruin me with that exact thing very soon. The expansion of Jackson, of course, and showing it this early has allowed the writers to connect the stories of Game 1 and Game 2 more concretely, showing things that were only mentioned in the second game. And no addition did this better than showing Joel's house, and more specifically having his confrontation with Ellie take place there in one of the bedrooms. This is important, of course, because when Joel dies in Part 2, we get the chance to explore his house in person, taking in the memories and artifacts that now reside there. And the show is already seeding this here by having such a pivotal moment of Joel and Ellie's relationship take place in Joel's future home. It's incredible. And then we have all of the other references to Part 2 that are packed in this episode. I already mentioned the hall that plays a pivotal scene in Part 2. There's Ellie meeting the horse Shimmer for the first time, Tommy pointing out his proficiency as a sniper, and of course a character who is almost certainly going to be Dina, who meets Ellie for the first time in this episode. They haven't confirmed this, but Dina's recollection of how she met Ellie for the first time that comes in the second game does line up with exactly what was happening in this specific scene when the two characters meet eyes. Meet eyes? Is that what you do? Clash eyes? Connect eyes? You know what I mean. Like I said previously, establishing all of this stuff now is only going to make their loss or potential loss in future seasons hit that much harder. It's confident writing to establish threads like this that might not be paid out in real time for years to come, yet will ultimately make the series as a whole, when all is said and done, that much more connected and that much stronger. Okay, we're back. No spoilers now. Overall, this was another fantastic episode that, pacing issues aside, delivered some of the highest moments of the season so far, and I can't wait to see what happens next episode. I'm definitely thinking it's gonna be an emotional one. So that's my review, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What did you think of episode 6 and episode 5 for that matter, because we did miss the review last week? And how do you think they're going to tackle things to come? We've got some very juicy stuff to happen yet without spoiling anything. Let me know, and while you're down there, if you could, please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to WhatCulture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't, though, I've been Josh. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.